So you're buying a house and you're at the end of the process and your agent says to you, when do you want to schedule the final walkthrough? And your first thought is, what's that? What's the final walkthrough? Walking through what? So the final walkthrough, what do? What do you expect? What's the final walkthrough? That's what we're going to talk about today, and we're starting right now.
I'm Sherry Ann Green with Coldwell Banker. Welcome to my YouTube channel that guides home sellers and home buyers in Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia.
If you've never bought a house before, you might be wondering, what is the final walkthrough? It's the last step pretty much before you buy that house, before you sign the papers at settlement, transfer all the funds to the seller, and get the keys to your new house. It's your final look at the home that you are purchasing. Now in DC, per the contract, the buyer and or the buyer's representative get to do a final walkthrough of the house 5 days prior to settlement. In the contract, it's actually worded as an inspection of the home 5 days prior. Now that word inspection can throw a lot of people off. Are you bringing back in the inspector? Is this another home inspection? Or what is this process really all about? So the final walkthrough isn't really an inspection. It's more of a follow-on to that inspection that you did. And if you didn't do an inspection at all, the final walkthrough is your final inspection of the property to confirm that everything is as it should be per your contract. So one thing to note about the final walkthrough, unless you've agreed to otherwise with the seller, per the contract, they are required to deliver the home vacant, free and clear of trash and debris, broom clean. The personal belongings should be gone, and it should be in essentially the same condition that you saw it per the terms of the contract. So in essentially the same condition as the day that you saw it and wrote your offer, or the day that you did your home inspection. And again, that'll be outlined in your contract. So vacant, free and clear, trash and debris, broom clean, and in essentially the same condition as you saw it to begin with. And that is to include smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. Those should be installed and in working order during that final walkthrough. So what should you as a buyer do during this final walkthrough? Here are my best tips to make sure that yours is successful. Tip number 1, if you did do a home inspection, now is your last chance to check that those items were repaired. If you agreed to a credit, that's a different story. But if you agreed to, let's say, a new dishwasher because the old one wasn't working, you're going to want to run that dishwasher. You want to make sure that any repairs that were negotiated during that home inspection process have been completed. So anything that was broken, you certainly want to check on to make sure that it's been done. Now, my pro tip here is that if you have repairs that you've negotiated per the home inspection, you really should be checking on those before this final walkthrough. Your final walkthrough could be the day of settlement, hours before settlement, or the day before. And if all those repairs aren't fixed, you really have run out of time to get the seller to repair them prior to closing. The better option here is this. In your home inspection addendum, you should be putting a date by which that all these repairs should be done. That gives you the time to come into the house prior to this final walkthrough and confirm that everything has been completed. The contract does allow for 5 days prior to settlement. So essentially, you could come in on the 5th day before settlement, check everything, and then the seller does have a few days. But if you've not outlined everything in the home inspection to be done prior to settlement, then the seller still has those 5 days to fix all of those things. So on the 5th day prior to closing, they may not have done them. It's a much better option to put exactly when you expect those repairs to be done so that you can come in and check to make sure that they were completed. And then you can come back in and do a final walkthrough as well. Tip number 2 is, home inspection or not, you want to check every system in the house during this final walkthrough. You want to check the ice maker. You want to check the smoke detectors. You want to run the HVAC, the heating or the air conditioning system. Make sure that you're running the right system for the season. You don't want to run the air conditioning in the winter, and you don't want to run the heat in the summer because you could break the system depending on what kind that it is. So talk to your agent and make sure you're testing in the right mode of each system, but test all of the systems as you go through the house on the final walkthrough and make sure they're in the condition they are supposed to be per the terms of your contract. Tip number 3 is test all the water and the drains. Test all the drains in each one of the sinks and in the tub. You want to make sure that they are running properly, and it's also a good idea to check to make sure there aren't any leaks. If you fill up the sink in the kitchen or the bathroom, for example, while you're testing the water, you've turned it on hot to make sure the hot water heater is working. Let the sink fill up and then let it drain, and watch underneath the sink to make sure that there isn't a leak that you didn't discover before or that needs to be repaired now at the last minute. Tip number 4 is to make sure that nothing was damaged by the movers on the way out. Sometimes in the DC area, we have smaller apartments and condos and co-ops, and it may be hard to get all of our furniture in and out. Some things may have gone out a window or out a sliding glass door on the balcony or cantilevered over. There could be times where we bump into a wall and put a little hole in the wall. You just want to make sure that nothing like that was done by the movers as they took the seller's belongings out of the house. The 5th tip is going back to that broom clean and free of debris section of your contract. You want to make sure that the house is free and clear of debris and it is broom clean. Now, everyone's definition of broom clean is different. Broom clean does not state or mean that the seller had to hire a professional cleaner to clean the house before you buy it. Certainly, some sellers do, and it is the loveliest thing to do for your new owner of your home, if you are a seller, is to really have it professionally cleaned. No one wants to inherit your dirt. However, it's not required. Broom clean is all it is. Literally, they can take a broom and sweep up and move out. So you're probably going to want to hire a professional cleaner. But back to the final walkthrough, and what does broom clean and free of debris mean? What I really want you to look for here is, did the seller really get everything on their move? Did they leave any personal property behind? Sometimes there's a hidden closet or an attic or a storage area. And sometimes the movers forget to look in these places, and sometimes the seller's personal belongings do get left behind, and they're things that they're not going to think about until next season or next year. So make sure you look around in every nook and cranny, in every storage space, attic, cellar, basement, and make sure that all the seller's belongings have in fact been removed. One question I often get is, should you bring an inspector to this final walkthrough? And it's a good question. If you did a home inspection and there were lots of things that needed to be repaired and you agreed on those repairs and you're not confident that you can make sure that they were done correctly, absolutely bring your home inspector back. Most are very open to coming back and checking the things that they found to be problematic during that home inspection. They may charge you a small fee for this return trip, but it may be worth your sanity to know that somebody who's a professional, a general home inspector, has looked at these issues to make sure that they have been taken care of properly. It's not required, but it is certainly something to consider if you've had major work done, major repairs done during your under contract period. Remember, this is your last chance to look at the house. It is your last chance to see that everything is as you expected and everything is as it should be per the terms of your contract. Some people come to the final walkthrough and they breeze through. They walk around, yep, house is here, let's move on. And that's fine if you're comfortable with doing it that way. But remember, the opportunity is there for you to run all the systems, test all the drains, make sure all the repairs have been done, and check for broom cleaning and debris and personal property still there. If you don't do those checks, if you're not thorough in your walkthrough and you go and sign and buy the house and then you find a problem, you have very little recourse to go back to the seller and say, whoa, what about this? You've already bought the house and now it's yours. So remember to think about this final walkthrough as your final look, your final test drive of the house before you buy it. What questions do you have about the final walkthrough? Have you done one? Did it go well? Tell me in the comments. Is there a question you have about the final walkthrough that I forgot to talk about? Leave me that here as well. And while you're at my channel, don't forget to subscribe. I do videos every week on the buying and the selling process, and I'd love to have you come along.